Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is a very special week to wish each other Shabbat Shalom, because tomorrow we're going to read the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments, in synagogues around the world. And we're all going to rise to hear them, just like our ancestors stood at Mount Sinai 3,337 years ago. And the fourth commandment of the 10 Commandments is remember the day of Shabbat to make it holy. And for over 3,000 years, that's exactly what Jews have been doing. As Echad Ha'am famously said, more than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jewish people. But we know that there are two versions of the 10 Commandments. One will be read tomorrow, and one will be read in the book of Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy, when Moses repeats the Torah. And interestingly, the reason given to keep Shabbat is different between tomorrow's reading and the one in Deuteronomy. In tomorrow's reading, the Torah says, keep the day of Shabbat holy, remember it to make it holy. Why? To remember that God made the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. But in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, it gives a different reason. It says, remember the day of Shabbat and make it holy because God took you out of slavery, and therefore you're not a slave, you're a free person. And you don't have to work 7 days a week. Every human being should have a day off. And the world has universally accepted this commandment, whether they keep the seventh day or a different day, the idea that there should be a day of rest. It's one of the universal contributions that the Jewish people have made to the entire world. But the question is, why two reasons for the same commandment? And the answer is there's two different ways to relate to God. One way is you look at the world. God made a beautiful world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. And you look at the world and you say, God created this beautiful abode, dwelling place for all of us to enjoy. So therefore we remember that God is the creator of the world. However, Judaism says you have to go beyond that. And you have to remember that God also has a personal relationship with each and every human being. He's not just the God of the universe. He's your God. And therefore in Deuteronomy it says, keep Shabbat, to remember that God liberated you, redeemed you from slavery. God wants you to live a free, meaningful, happy, purposeful life. He's not just concerned with the universe, he's concerned with your personal happiness and freedom, and therefore take a day for yourself to relate to God on a personal level on Shabbat. And the idea is that there's two ways to see God. One is through the universe, but the other one is through our personal interactions. We see the image of God in the manifestation of human goodness and kindness. Just like God sent Moses to redeem the Jewish people from slavery, God uses emissaries in this world to bring blessings and happiness and deliverance and redemption to each and every human being. And we can be God's ambassadors to heal a fractured and broken world, to redeem people, maybe not from physical slavery, but from emotional, psychological, financial, whatever form of confinement or enslavement that a human being finds themselves in. Whatever constraints, limitations, we could help redeem them from whatever it is that is holding them back from maximizing their full potential. And that's the message of Shabbat. Shabbat is that we shouldn't just spend 6 days a week accumulating, amassing, acquiring, possessing, earning, but we should take a day to think beyond ourselves, to spread the peace and the blessings of Shabbat to others, and to bring joy, happiness, and goodness to our fellow man. There's a video that was sent to me last week. There's a family I know from New York that made Aliyah about a year ago, and their son Eitan joined the IDF, and he was sent into Gaza, and he was shot in the arm, severely wounded. He was airlifted to Tel HaShomer in Tel Aviv, and he underwent multiple surgeries. And last week he was laying in his hospital bed with a cast around his arm, and in walks a group of people. Who are these people? There was a groom in Tel Aviv, a groom, a chatan, who was getting married. He showed up to his wedding in a tuxedo and a bow tie, and all his groomsmen were there with their gray suits, And he said to them, before we go to the wedding, before we go to celebrate my wedding, let's go to the local hospital and cheer up some of the injured, wounded soldiers in the hospital. And so he went over to the band members and he said, come with me, let's go to the hospital and bring the joy of this wedding to the soldiers. And a few of the musicians, the guitarist, the violinist, the trumpet player, they all packed into the cars with the groomsmen and the groom. And this father and mother is sitting by their son's hospital bed. And suddenly in walks a group of people, a groom in a tuxedo, groomsmen wearing suits and musicians, and they start playing and celebrating and bringing joy to their son. And they said for the first time their son lit up. He couldn't believe it, that this groom came from his wedding hall to celebrate with him. And I saw the video, the way the son gets out of bed with his hand in a sling and starts dancing with the groom and with all the groomsmen. This is what it means to remember that God made the world, but God also wants every human being to find their happiness. And when you're going to your own wedding, don't just think about your happiness. Think about how you could bring happiness to others. That's the message of Shabbat, that God wants every human being to live a free, fulfilling, and happy life. Shabbat Shalom.